so as to give a chance to other brethren, and get back to in the queue. You may have a chance if there is time allowed. I would like again to appeal to all audience never to interject anything from the floor or comment. Let people ask their questions briefly and the speakers will answer them. Again, I'd like to insist on that a few seconds. No preliminary comments. No preliminary comments. Directly to the question. The first brother, please.
I'd like to ask both speakers why they didn't mention the fact that there are 49 references to crucifixion in the New Bible, and to the word raised or resurrection in Arabic qama. In all languages, there are more than 7 references in front of me to the actual word being raised. And why they didn't refer both of them to the fact that external evidences in history has spoken about the actual crucifixion of Christ by the Roman authorities.
Thank you. Would any of the speakers wish to answer first?
With regards to the word risen or resurrected, in the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, not once is the word resurrection used in connection with Jesus that he is resurrected. Not once. In the 4 Gospels, there is not a single reference.
Thank you, Mr. Deedat. No interjection. Please get back in the line, and you may have a chance if there is. We have to give just a minute, please. We have to look at behind you and see how many people are waiting. Please give a chance to others. Would Professor Floyd wish to comment on that? Briefly also, please. Please. No, Ya Akhi, you're not the chairman of the meeting. I will tell him. So please, keep quiet. You wait until Professor Floyd answers. No, go ahead.
I'm not sure that I heard the question with the disturbance involved, but if I understand the question, it is about the use of the word resurrection. And of course, the Bible refers both to the fact that Jesus arose on istemi and that he was alive. And this is the teaching of Scripture, that Jesus was resurrected and Jesus was alive.
Thank you, Professor Floyd. The next questioner.
This question is to either Professor Floyd or Mr. Deedat.
Can you get a bit close to the mic so that everybody can hear you?
The question is for both speakers, really. Okay. It may sound a bit irrelevant, but I'm very anxious to know if Jesus has said anything about the coming of Muhammad, please, in the Bible.
Okay, the question is whether Jesus said anything about the coming of Muhammad. In the chair, I would like to rule that this is not relevant to the specific topic for tonight. If there is a chance after the questions are answered, we might be able to get to that. Thank you. The next.
I understand from Professor Clark's lecture that Jesus Christ gave his life for the sins of humanity, and also that the death is the sort of penalty of sins. If that is true, that simply means that the concept of reward and the concept of punishment is lost. Then you can go on committing the sins and there's nothing to stop it from you.
Okay, your question is directed to any of
Professor Clark, please.
To Mr. Deedat. To Professor Clark. Okay.
Would you repeat it? I'm not hearing.
I didn't hear it. Would you repeat it, but provide, please, come to the point, straightforward.
The points are two. You see, from Professor Clark's lecture, I understand that Jesus Christ gave his life for the sins of humanity. Mm-hmm. And the second point is that the death is sort of penalty of sins. Therefore, it implies that you can keep on committing sins and nothing to stop it from you, because the concept of reward and punishment is completely lost if we believe in this thing.
Okay. I think my understanding is that he says that will us to heal sin. Yeah. Claiming that Jesus redeemed us. So we'll commit sins as much as we can.
Again, we're having difficulty. I'm old enough to in this sort of thing not to be able to pick up all that is being said, but if I understand the question is, if Jesus died for the sin of the world, does that encourage everybody to sin? Is that the question? Well, we have the definitive answer, of course, in Romans. That's impossible, because if a Christian obeys the Lord Jesus Christ and is pardoned for his sins, the Christian dies to sin. We are buried, therefore, Paul says, with baptism through him into death, that like as Christ was raised from the dead, and so on. And the Christian cannot continue in sin if he accepts the blood of Christ, because he dies to sinning, and that's why he comes to him.
Thank you. The next, and again briefly and to the point.
This is directed to Professor Clark. I refer to Matthew 27, verse 46-47. The statement reads, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. And then further on it says, that is, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Just one thing. It's the only verse that is left in the original Aramaic or Greek. Now, that is why it intrigues me. Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. The word in Greek for
point,
God, yes, is Elohim. There is no such God, and there is no proof anywhere that in that time, in the time of Jesus, that Eli meant my God. Because why did the Jews...
Excuse me. No speeches, no many speeches, no preliminary remarks.
Okay.
Put the question directly.
Okay, the question is, then it goes on to say, then some of the bystanders hearing this said, what is this man saying? Is he meaning Elijah? That means the Jews did not understand what Eli meant.
Again, I have to warn you before cutting you off.
What is the question?
Put your question directly in one sentence.
Okay.
What is the question?
The question is, my proposition is Eli does not mean my God. Eli is a name, because I've asked synagogues and I've asked several professors of
Okay.
Hebrew, and they say Eli can be a name
Okay.
of a person.
Okay, Professor Clark.
My understanding is he said Eli, and Eli doesn't necessarily mean my God. That's right. We will have two more questions. Only two more questions.
Again, I think the question is difficult in this context to answer. Jesus is quoting from an Old Testament passage, and in that Old Testament passage, we then can understand what Jesus was talking about. And I would recommend that the party who has the question just turn to that passage in the Old Testament, and I think it perfectly answers your question.
Thank you. The next questioner. I hope there will be no need to cut off any questioner. Please.
I first would like to thank Mr. Deedat for his very excellent and intelligent exposition of the question.
And now the question.
I'd like to ask Professor Clark about what he thinks of the nature of Jesus, and whether he was God or the Son of God or the messenger of God. Because in his talk, he said that when Jesus was about to bring Lazarus from the dead, he said, thank you, so that you may believe, so that they may believe that you have sent me. He's talking to God. So, okay. And also on the cross, in Professor Clark's exposition, he's saying, Father, in thy hands I commit my soul. Now, isn't that enough evidence for Professor Clark to convince him that the relationship between Jesus and God is the relationship between a God and the messenger?
Okay, thank you. The question was directed to Mr. Deedat or to Professor Clark. Just make it clear. Okay.
Jesus, when he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit, he was speaking in the spirit of all that he had done through a long time ministry, in which he said he did nothing except what he saw his Father do, that the words he spoke were not his own, but the words he heard his Father speak, and he claimed only to be relating to God as his Father.
Okay. Thank you. We're really running out of time. We might allow 2 or 3 questions more. The first one.
In 1974-75 on television, Professor Anderson, who ironically taught Mohammedan law in the Council of Legal Education, London, and University of London called Muslim...
brother, would you please put your question directly?
It is.
Yeah.
And pagan, because they did not believe in Trinity. May I ask Dr. Floyd what is his view about Muslims, as they do not believe and recognize Trinity, as well as the crucifixion of Prophet Jesus? Do you consider Muslims as pagan or the people of the book? Given also the fact that at the time of the Prophet, many pious Christians freely accepted Islam.
Okay, thank you. Professor Clark.
When a Muslim doesn't believe in divinity and the crucifixion, in view of the rejection of this notion.
Well, it really doesn't matter what I think. It just matters what the book says. And as we've been looking in the book, I think we can come to whatever private opinions we may have. But I think of my brother Ahmed as of one whom in the New Testament was mentioned as one who was not far from the kingdom.
Okay, the next question. No injection from the floor, please. The next speaker. Would you please come close so that you could be...
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa
My question is direct to Brother Ahmed Deedat. Well, yesterday, day before yesterday, on Friday, I attended his meeting in South Hall, and he was speaking about Prophet Muhammad's arrival is mentioned in the Bible. Therefore, why Christians, theologians don't talk about...
if your question, I'm sorry for injection here. If your question, brother, relate... Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. Just a minute, please.
Muhammad's arrival is mentioned in the Bible.
In fairness to you...
Why Christians, theologians don't talk about him?
Just a minute, please. In fairness to you and to everybody else and to the brother who was turned down, the question is not relevant to the topic. Would you please move on? Would you please move on and let the next speaker ask the question? Relevant to the topic? Go ahead briefly. Just put it... Professor Clark. Okay, would you... Thank you for your question. I ruled the question out of order. It's not relevant to the topic. Would you move on, please? Would you move on? Would you move on, Jazakallah? Next speaker. What was the topic? I can't remember. If you tell me.
Something about sinning.
Oh, yeah. He said that if Jesus died for our sin, and the Bible said that because of that original sin, man was destined to labor for his work in the book of Genesis, and woman would suffer the pregnancy and childbirth. How is that consistent then? If Jesus died for our sin, and still women are going through this suffering, and men are working for it.
Well, I think the question that has been asked concerning the role of the woman who has been suffering since since the beginning when Adam and Eve fell, and the woman has had this role of punishment because she disobeyed God. I think that question is very far from our discussion tonight, but in answer to this, we do know that the New Testament teaches that all creation was brought under bondage when man sinned, and that bondage will not be redeemed until the end when Christ redeems the world.
I think we'll have entertain one more question because we are running out of time. We have only 4 minutes left. The last one.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Everybody has a question that is one sentence, but we have 50 sentences waiting. Go ahead.
I like to ask Professor Clark, in the book of Hebrew, chapter 5, verse 7, it says, who in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplication with strong cries and tears unto him, is God, that was able to save him from death, D-E-A-T-H, and was heard in that was he feared. Wasn't a clear indication that he was saved from this? Thank you very much.
Before the answer of the question, I have to apologize by asking the brothers or sisters who are waiting in line to forget it. We are sorry, we are already 10 minutes behind time. Muslims and Christians to get together